Hello everyone, this is Ponder on Weather. In this update, we have an active weather pattern continuing as non-stop storms continue off the northwest flow as the heat builds as we walk you through the next 7 days. Good morning everyone, welcome back. How's it going? Hope everyone is having a fabulous week out there. If you are new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. Let's take a look at the overall water vapor imagery this morning on the North American view. You can really kind of tell what's happening out there. This Pacific jet has been really active with this funnel stream of moisture, bringing all the cooler conditions off in the Pacific Northwest, but also all the instability in the rain showers, especially along the coast. But that sets the stage for the northwest flow as storms have been blowing up in the Rocky Mountains at night and then traversing down southeast, producing all the severe threat. But this morning, we've got some storms impacting portions of the northeast, but a lot of dry air funneling on the backside. So as these storms push across, it's going to be a nice day up there into the northeast. You just got to get through these storms this morning. So man, but it's been very active over the last couple of days. Let's just kind of take you back of the overall storm reports from 3 days ago. We actually had 5 tornado reports and up to 87 wind reports and 86 hail reports, and some of those have been large hail, so up to 2.5 inches diameter in portions of Nebraska. And we even had a 4-inch hailstone back in 3 days ago into Kansas, but the wind has been really prevalent as well, 82 miles an hour, and then Colorado, as well as some higher wind gusts up to 79 miles an hour into Nebraska. And then just 2 days ago, we actually had 13 tornado reports, 212 wind reports, and up to 216 hail reports. And again, that larger hail has been prevalent in Colorado and to Nebraska with some 2-inch, some 2.5-inch hail. That is some tennis ball size hail that will definitely do a lot of damage out there. And even a 3-inch hailstone into Nebraska again has been pummeled. And back into the panhandle of Texas, yeah, they've had a 4-inch hailstone just the other day. But man, that wind threat has been really prevalent as well, as these storms have been really active, especially into the overnight hours, with some hurricane force wind gusts of 78 miles an hour all the way into Wyoming, and then 82 miles an hour in Oklahoma. And just yesterday, we had several tornadoes reported into Ohio there. And then, we also had another 165 wind reports and another 28 hail reports, preliminary numbers. But yeah, again, several reports of 2-inch diameter hailstones. And then again, the overnight threat has been pretty prevalent. And as you wake up between 6:46 and 7:14 in the morning, you're basically waking up to hurricane force wind gust in Oklahoma yesterday, and then back into Texas, and then all the way up to 82 miles an hour into the morning hours. So definitely these storms have been really packing a punch. And I think that actually just continues for the next several days. But the rain has also been really prevalent as well. So this is the overall rain amounts for the last 3 days. We had some rain showers into portions of Vancouver, into Seattle, back into Portland here, but also been some heavier showers up here into Calgary, producing coming down into Montana. But it's been really prevalent, especially as you get east of the Rockies here off this northwest flow, with these multi-inch rain amounts traversing down into Colorado, into Kansas, through Oklahoma, basically bypassing Texas as the ridge of high pressure just dominates for them. But yeah, Oklahoma, especially in Arkansas, they've produced multiple inches of rain. There's been even reports of 7 inches of rain over the last couple of days. And so a lot of flooding's happening in and around the Birmingham area as well, back into Knoxville, into Cincinnati, all the way up into Detroit, into Buffalo, even Toronto, with multi-inch rain. So it's been very active. Even down all far south as into Florida has been getting a lot of rain over the last couple of days. But that storm threat just continues. So yes, like I mentioned, they do have that marginal risk for storms this morning up here into portions of the Northeast that we'll cover. But there it is. There's the bullseye again. Storms blow up off the east of the Rocky Mountains again. We do have a slight risk in place. Some of these could be another big, large hail producers in Nebraska, back into Kansas, into the Oklahoma Panhandle, back into the Texas Panhandle. So a lot of the same areas that have seen the severe threat over the last several days will just continue to see that today. All these traversed down, and they likely are to weaken as they continue off the northwest flow, as they push further south into portions of Louisiana. But here's the setup this morning. So this is the setup around 9-10 o'clock Eastern time up here into the northeast. So we do have that storm threat impacting portions of Burlington, back into Hartford, into Concord. Those push out into Rhode Island, all the way into Nantucket here, and that storm threat will continue to push offshore. So we have a lot of lightning and a lot of heavier rains into the area, but over the next several hours that will produce, be pushing well offshore. And then we have that all that dry air, like I showed you, going to be pulling in on the backside. So after this storm threat moves off this morning, it's actually going to be a really nice day up there. So definitely enjoy what might be to come over the next couple of hours, with a little bumpy ride, but then clearing on the backside. So, but as we extend the view and take you through again in the middle of the country, we've got that Pacific jet just pummeling the Pacific Northwest. But as we get into, again, 10-11 o'clock time frame tonight, we see more storms trying to blow up here off the northwest flow and in Nebraska, getting into Kansas, Oklahoma Panhandle, Texas Panhandle. And again, we're going to see an overnight threat. This is 11 o'clock. So these are all going to kind of congeal together and form another mesoscale convective system here, moving southeast into the overnight hours. And yes, by the time we wake up to tomorrow, that threat will be along that boundary here, again, missing most of Texas. And then that has the storm threat off the northwest flow again. Now, as we get into tomorrow, the storm threat will be over Arkansas, over to Louisiana, back into Mississippi, over portions of Georgia here. And you can actually see where that MCS is going to be around 10 o'clock time frame on Friday morning. So it'll blow up over the Rocky Mountains, 11 o'clock on tonight, and then continue to transform into that mesoscale convective system, and then really starting to get its act together, pushing through Arklatex, going all the way, keep diving southeast and through Louisiana into Mississippi and Alabama, and then western Tennessee as well throughout the day for tomorrow. But overall, here's the overall rain for the next 48 hours. So again, we've got those systems that come off the Pacific Northwest, but then form off the east of the Rocky Mountains. So we have multiple inches of rain over the next 2 days, but especially as we get into Oklahoma, through Arkansas, through Louisiana, into Mississippi here, and portions of Alabama. And then of course, Florida will be into the action with those rain showers as well. And there's the action this morning for the Northeast, that they could be looking at, adding to some of those 1 inch totals before the rain moves out. But then we have all that clearing coming on the backside into portions of the Ohio Valley that they dealt with all the severe threat just yesterday. So yes, but after we get into the weekend, there's that ridge of high pressure that's going to be dominating, that's baking Las Vegas and Phoenix. We're talking 113, even 115 tomorrow in Phoenix. And as we get into Saturday, that heat, that ridge just expands now to a 594 millibar high pressure system that will just expand over New Mexico, pushing further into Texas. That's just going to crank up the heat, and triple digits are in order for a good chunk of Texas as the ridge of high pressure just lifts further and further north. So you can still see you have that northwest flow, but it's losing its luster as the ridge will finally start to take over, and that pushes the jet stream further and further north. And as it does push it further and further north, that's going to push the storm threat further and further north. So we could be looking at a kind of a marginal threat going into the day on Saturday into portions of the middle of the country up here into the upper Midwest, where we could be looking at kind of sporadic scattered storms throughout the day. But as we get into Sunday, things kind of change in a big way as we get through again off the ridge of high pressure. Will just continue to push further into Texas, into the middle of the country, and as it does, it will expand as we have yet another trough, another trough that's going to be digging down into the Pacific Northwest, bringing all the cooler conditions for them, so you remain cool on the cool side with more instability. But what the big change is the northwest flow essentially stops, and the storm track will be further and further to the north. And as this trough really starts to get its act together as we get into Sunday and especially into Monday, that will set the stage for more severe storms as we have that buckle in the jet stream over portions of the upper Great Lakes and to the Ohio Valley, where they are experiencing a little bit of those cooler conditions, especially for June standards, as all the heat will be much more or less well to the south and much of the middle of the country, but it will slowly build further north as we get throughout next week. So as we take into Monday the 13th, you can see the buckle in the jet stream. So as that does, we've got the ridge of high pressure, we've got those arrows coming in off the Gulf of Mexico, pulling all that tropical moisture and all the higher dew points and the higher heat index. So you not only crank up the heat on the temperature, but you crank up the heat on the actual feels like temperature as well. So you're probably talking heat advisories for a good chunk of Texas by then, as that ridge of high pressure will be really dominating, but the trough will be buckling off into the Pacific Northwest. And where you see that jet streak really amplifying, going into 100 knots, that's going to set the stage for more severe storms up into the upper Midwest as we get into the day on Monday, because the Cape values are really extreme by then. So you're pulling all that heat from the south, you've got that instability coming in from the west, and that sets the stage for more rounds and probably intense supercell thunderstorms over portions of the Dakotas, getting into Minnesota here and portions of Iowa as we get into the day on Monday. But you can definitely see on the overall water vapor imagery as the storms will try to explode over portions of Minnesota, getting into portions of Iowa here as we get into the day on Monday, taking advantage of all that heat and instability coming in from the south. And then we've got that lift in the upper atmosphere that will set the stage for, yes, more rounds of severe storms. But man, the heat is going to be a dominating story as we get into next week. The heat indexes continue to rise in the middle of the country, and that heat will be prevalent over, now we're talking like 105 heat index in a good chunk of Illinois, 107 in Indiana, 105 in Ohio. So yeah, a lot of that heat will continue to build as the ridge of high pressure will just continue to dominate and expand. And as it does, that will lift the heat further north and then northeast as we get throughout the week. But all the cooler conditions, if you want to escape the heat, all you got to do is head to the Pacific Northwest, where they're still experiencing fairly mild conditions for June standards. So yeah, but man, look, as we get into Tuesday, as we get into Wednesday, yeah, well, that could be a really bumpy day as the jet stream will really start to amplify, go negative tilt over portions over Minnesota, getting into Iowa again. So these storms will have a lot of lift, and I expect an active day up here into this part of the country, as that storm threat will be over your head by the time we get into Wednesday. But man, just beyond that, there's the ridge of high pressure will just continue to move away from the southwest and really kind of park itself over Texas and really start to expand. And as it pushes northeast, the dome of high pressure with a lot of sinking air is going to be prevalent as well, as the Pacific jet stream will continue to remain active, and all the cooler conditions will remain active for the Pacific Northwest, and have all the storm threat well to the north up here into the Dakotas, getting into portions of Minnesota as we get into the middle of the week next week. But now let's take a look at the overall tropics, because there's a little storm system out here in the Pacific. The National Hurricane Center actually does have it about a 60% chance of development for our next named system in the Pacific. So it's going to be slow to get its act together. It's about 5 days out where they do have a 60% chance for tropical development. The only reason why I bring this up, because it's going to actually set the stage for rain. Yes, rain. With the ridge of high pressure going to be dominating in the middle of the country, we could have a weakness in the ridge, and that steering flow will coming off the Pacific, and we could be looking at needed rains. We've had some needed rains over portions of New Mexico the last couple of days, but I think it's going to be several days. But as we get deeper into next week, I think the storm threat and a little bit more active weather pattern actually comes back for the Southwest. So we could be looking at some pretty good healthy rains coming back for portions of Arizona and getting into Mexico, where this area has just been bone dry. So they've been looking at any kind of hint of any change in the overall weather pattern. And I think with the combination of the ridge going to be dominating, moving away and pushing further into Texas, and especially moving further into the Arklatex next week, that opens the door with some of the flow coming off the Pacific and a little bit of weakness in the ridge out here in the Southwest, where you could be looking at, hey, above average rains, yes, for the Southwest coming. So, hey, I appreciate you guys following out there. Welcome. I appreciate all my members out there for joining the channel as well, and all my followers that they continue to follow me so I can keep you ahead of the storm. I'll be updating tomorrow as well, so stay tuned to that update where I protect you before and after the storm.